Hello.
Very nice to meet you again.
Nice to meet you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to meet you.
Hello.
Good morning. Hello.
Oh, it's very nice to see you again. Yesterday, but it was very, very positive.
Seems to go well.
Drafting
Yes.
group. Yes.
Smooth
Yeah.
and very quick.
Congratulations. Thank you for
So
your
it was
efforts.
one of the first actions we took actually.
Yes,
So
climate and the tone is so positive. I think it will be possible to sort out all these challenges as quick as possible.
on your numbers. There has been unanimity in the Council of the European Ministers, so
So good morning. I'm very pleased to have Commissioner Reding with us today because this is, one can say, a historic day because we are opening the EU negotiations on EU accession to the European Convention on Human Rights. Actually, we are not talking about negotiations because that they have already taken place because the Lisbon Treaty says clearly that the EU shall accede to the convention. And when we, all the member states of the Council of Europe ratified Protocol 14, it was clear that accession could take place. So now we are trying to sort out all the challenges that we need to do when European Union is to accede to the convention. This is, as I said, a historic day because when EU accedes to the convention, then we will secure one legal space for all European nations and European Union as a legal body, and this is of course very, very important for all the citizens on the European continent. So we are very glad to have you here today.
the Commission and the European Union is very much aware of the historic dimension of this day. It will be the second pair of eyes which will look upon the way we are putting into practice the values on which Europe is built, the values of respect, of human rights, and of working together, and not one against the other. So our duty was now, in the last months, to put into practice inside of Europe the Charter of Fundamental Rights, which is part of the new Lisbon Treaty. And the new Lisbon Treaty says very clearly that we must become part of the Convention of Human Rights. Now, that was one of the first actions the newly elected Commission around President Barroso has taken. Now the Commission has a mandate to negotiate. The negotiations have started, and when they will be concluded, that will mean that the 500 million citizens of the European Union will have a double security: the security of the European Treaty and the security of the Convention of Human Rights, and that this continent of ours will become a model in the world. We are both putting this in practice now, and we are both very much convinced that this is going to be an historic movement which will show to the citizens of the world, yes, human rights and the respect of the individuals are not only words, they are deeds, and they are in each individual in Europe a fact.
Well,
Can I just ask a few questions? Thank you. Mrs. Reding, could I just ask what the implications would be for the court in Luxembourg if the EU accedes, when the EU accedes to the convention?
The court in Luxembourg and the court in Strasbourg are complementary. The court in Luxembourg cares for the European laws in general. It will continue to do so. The court in Strasbourg will see if the European Union and its bodies, its institutions, put the elements of the convention into practice. So it will be a second tier of guarantee for our citizens, and I am very much convinced that the two courts who have something in mind, that is the human being and its rights, will very narrowly work together in the interest of all our citizens.
Thank you very much. Can I just ask the Secretary General, and what difference will it make to the Council of Europe to have the EU accede to the Convention?
Well, as I said, it is a great event, not first and foremost for the Council of Europe, but for the citizens of Europe, because then the European Union as a legal body will also be under the same standards and the same court as all the nations states. That is very important, because then we can secure one legal space for everybody. If not, the danger is that two different case laws regarding human rights and rule of law will develop on the European continent. So this is why it's so important for us, and it has a lot of implications for the organization. First of all, a very positive thing, namely that we need to do better to make the organization more efficient, and that's why we have the reform process going, and of course the necessity to reform the court itself so that it can be more efficient and take care of all the applications that are coming to the court.
Okay. Just one last question for Mrs. Reding. Do you have any idea how long it's going to take for the EU to accede to the Convention?
Well, I must tell you, in the beginning, when we have been looking at this, we said that it's going to be a nightmare. It's going to take decades. I tell you, that was a wrong assumption. It's going to go rather quickly, because one of the first actions of the newly elected Commission of President Barroso was to put the mandate for negotiation on the table, and it has to be accepted by the Council of European Ministers. It was accepted very quickly by the Council, so that yesterday and today we could start the real negotiations. From what I have heard from the negotiators, the first meetings went very well. So I am optimistic. It won't take too long, and it will be a historic decision once it will be done.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Today I am pleased and honored to welcome Ms. Viviane Reding, Vice President of the European Commission, European Commissioner for Justice, Fundamental Rights and Citizenship. Your presence, Madam, is a very clear and most encouraging sign of the importance that you personally and the Commission as a whole. One fundamental aspect of this relation is the forthcoming accession of the European Union to the European Convention of Human Rights, which is foreseen in the Lisbon Treaty and in the Protocol 14 of the Convention. Ask the representative of the press to leave the room before inviting members of our committee to make comments or ask questions. Madam Reding, the floor is yours.
President, Secretary General, ambassadors, it is a historic moment, as your chairman just said, and for me it is an honor to speak to you on the very day that we kick off the meeting of the negotiations on the European Union's accession to the European Convention on Human Rights. This accession will be the missing link in Europe's system of fundamental rights protection, and it will guarantee the coherence between the approaches of the Council of Europe and the approaches of the European Union. The constitutional significance of this accession was noted by the European Court of Justice back in 1994. Now, thanks to the Lisbon Treaty, the EU has the competence it lacked in 1994. What is more, the Lisbon Treaty makes it clear that this accession is not an option, but it is a destination. Of course, the Lisbon Treaty contribution to the protection of fundamental rights did not stop there, because the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European Union is now legally binding. The Charter entrenches the EU's legal order and all the rights found in the Convention are also found in the Charter. However, the Charter allows for more extensive protection. It enshrines other rights and principles which are derived from the constitutional traditions of the EU member states, from the case law of the European Court of Justice, and from international instruments, including notably the instruments of the Council of Europe. These rights comprehend economic and social rights, and the so-called third generation of fundamental rights, such as, for example, data protection, guarantees on bioethics, and on good and transparent administration. Article 53 of the Charter makes it clear that the level of protection provided must be at least as high as that of the Convention. And as such, the EU's Charter of Fundamental Rights represents a very modern codification of fundamental rights. It is our compass, and we have to follow where it points. And one of the consequences of this compass has been the lately setting up of the Stockholm Programme, out of which the Commission made an action programme in order to put into practice all the ideas which are contained in the Stockholm Programme in a very quick manner. So we have started already, and we are at a pace of week by week presenting elements to put the Stockholm Programme into our European law. And in this context, of course, the accession of the EU to the Convention is of a high political and legal significance, because it will perfect this area of freedom, security, and justice we are just building in Europe. So accession will guarantee any person claiming to be a victim of a violation of the Convention by an institution or by a body of the Union to bring a complaint against the Union before the Strasbourg Court, under the same conditions as those applying to complaints brought against member states. In political terms, this accession means that the European Union reaffirms the pivotal role played by the Convention system for the protection of human rights in Europe by placing its own legal order fully and formally within that system. In legal terms, accession will be important for several reasons. First, it complements the introduction of the legally binding Charter of Fundamental Rights. Accession to the Convention will ensure that the case law of both courts, our court in Luxembourg and our court in Strasbourg, will evolve in step. Second, accession allows the Court of Human Rights to attribute acts adopted by the institutions or bodies of the Union directly to the Union, instead of the previous situation where it had to attribute them, although implicitly, to member states collectively. And thirdly, the Union will have at its disposal all the rights which the Convention gives to the contracting parties, rights to defend the human rights conformity of its act before the Court of Human Rights, being represented in this court and in the related bodies of the Convention. You have seen that the European Union has made of this adhesion a very high priority. It is a priority for the College, for the ministerial level, and also personally for President Barroso and for myself. On the 17th of March, as one of the first acts of the new Commission, a recommendation to that effect was submitted by the Commission to the Council. And the Council has also treated this matter as a priority, because on the 4th of June, it adopted a decision authorizing the Commission to negotiate the accession agreement on behalf of the European Union. And I'm very pleased to see that all the steps to prepare this have been taken very swiftly, both on the side of the EU and also, Secretary General, on the side of the Council of Europe. And that has made it possible for the negotiations between the EU and the 47 contracting parties to start already before the summer break. We couldn't believe it, but it has really happened. That shows that everybody is really dedicated to get that work done. And I am very confident that the negotiations will be conducted swiftly and in a very constructive manner. President, the EU seeks smooth insertion into the system of the Convention. The EU does not ask for a special regime. It is looking to be treated on an equal footing with the contracting parties. Adaptations to the Convention should be limited to the strict minimum necessary in order to preserve the specificities of the institutional arrangements in the EU. Let me just name two examples in order to show what I mean with this, because they are more or less technical and procedural adaptations. The first, for instance, a so-called correspondent mechanism, will allow the European Union to take part as a correspondent in proceedings before the court in cases brought against a member state where there is an intrinsic link between the alleged violation of the Convention and the provisions of the Union law. The second concerns provisions ensuring that the principle of prior internal control, which, by the way, is one of the fundamental principles of the Convention system, is respected also in situations where the compatibility of a legal act of the Union is at stake before the European Court of Human Rights without a preliminary reference to the Court of Justice of the European Union having been made, in order not to hold up your proceedings. Accession on an equal footing with the existing contracting parties also means full participation in the collective guarantee system established by the Convention. Therefore, there should be a full-time permanent judge elected for the European Union, who will enjoy the same status and the same duties as his peers, and the presence in the European Court of Human Rights of a judge elected for each contracting parties is also one of the founding principles of the Convention. It ensures that each legal system is represented within the court and thereby reinforces the legitimacy of its decisions. As for the method of electing that judge, the normal procedure provided for in the Convention should apply. This means that the Parliamentary Assembly elects that judge from a list of 3 candidates presented by the European Union, and an appropriate number of members of the European Parliament should be allowed to participate in sessions of the Parliamentary Assembly when it elects the judges of the European Court of Human Rights. In the same vein, a representative of the European Union should participate in the Council, in the Committee of Ministers, with a right to vote when the committee exercises its function pursuant to the Convention. President, we all know that the Convention is one of the most important and most successful human rights instruments in the world. And accession of the EU to this Convention will be a very important step in enhancing the protection of fundamental rights in Europe. So you can be sure that we will work together with you in order to achieve this worthy objective and fulfill the mandate given both by the Convention itself and by the EU Treaty.
Thank you very much, Madam Reding, for your positive and most constructive views about our cooperation. And now, if you allow me, I would like to invite the Secretary General to take the floor.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Reding, it is an honor and pleasure to have you here today. Thank you for your very important words. The accession of the European Union to the European Convention on Human Rights is a development of historic importance, not only for the European Union and for the Council of Europe, but for Europe as a whole. With the acceptance to submit itself to the same rules and the same scrutiny which applies to all European democratic governments, the EU is sending a very important message that when it comes to human rights and fundamental freedoms, the rules are the same for all. The road that we are embarking upon today will not only lead to better protection of human rights for the citizens of the European Union, it will also lay the foundation for a Europe of values which is genuinely without borders, a safe haven for human rights stretching from Valletta over Brussels to Vladivostok. The Council of Europe and the European Union are born out of the same historic vision of Europe. We have had decades of separate, even if very friendly and close development. With the accession, we are making a step towards the original vision. I should like to congratulate the European Commission and especially the Vice President Reding for the work they have accomplished so far. The adoption of the mandate and the beginning of the drafting process today has come sooner than many skeptics have predicted. It is important that the process keeps its momentum. EU accession to the European Convention on Human Rights is a historic event and has positive geopolitical implications as well. It will secure one legal space comprising all nation states and the EU as a legal body. Everybody, small and big nations, as well as global players on our continent, under the same standards and the same court regarding human rights and rule of law. Europe will be more unified and stronger, safeguarding Europe as a continent of peace, reconfirming Pax Europiana. The drafting process will have to deal with some very complex legal issues, as you mentioned, Commissioner Reding, but with the political will on all sides, it should be possible to complete the drafting process as early as possible. It is important to stay in regular contact and keep the political control of the process, and I'm sure that we will do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Secretary General. Now I believe that Madame Reding would like to deliver certain documents to the Secretary General and to the Chairman of the Committee. Thank you very much.
Secretary General.